Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown doing a recap for UFC 188 Velasquez versus Werdum. I was 5 for 11 on my picks for this card. Not a great night for my picks, but what a historic main event. Werdum taking out Velasquez. Completely unexpected for me. I know some of my viewers had told me to pick Werdum, but just completely shocked me, and one of those fights that's just legendary. I haven't gotten that magical feeling watching a fight, since maybe Sonnen versus Silva 2. So I really loved it. Not a great night of action top to bottom, but the main event definitely is one of those rare times where the main event made up for everything. And we had another really spectacular breakout fight for Yair Rodriguez. So yeah, it's 5 for 11. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, link in the description. I live tweet during fights. I'd love to converse with some of you guys on there. But let's get right to this. And one point I want to make about the altitude, I think that either excuse all of the fighters, all of the fighters who lost, excuse them all of their performances because of the altitude, or just don't mention it at all. I think it's really kind of stupid that Joe Rogan, for every fight, is to bring up the altitude and discuss whether the fighter had acclimated or not. And it's just like, I'm sure it could be very real, but I think the UFC should either just not have fights there if it's gonna keep bringing it up as a hindrance to these fighters, or just shut up and don't mention it at all. But anyways, let's run through the card. Starting off on the UFC Fight Pass prelim card, first fight, Gabriel Benitez defeated Clay Collard by unanimous decision, 30-27 sweep. And this was really surprising for me. Benitez was from Tough Latin America, which I watched, and he had a nice win on the show. I think he lost to the winner, Diablito Perez. Actually, I'm not sure about that, but I didn't think he was a guy that was going to succeed in the UFC, and beat Humberto Brown in the finale. Kind of struggled with the wrestling. It was pretty noticeable in that fight, and I thought Brown looked terrible in that fight, like a completely novice and inexperienced fighter. Benitez got the finish, and I just didn't think that was good enough to beat anyone in the UFC. And Clay Collard, I thought was a really decent prospect, competing well with Max Holloway in his debut on short notice, and then I thought he had a good sound performance against Alex White, and Benitez totally beat him up. Had a huge speed advantage. Collard looked like he was just gassed and done early. Benitez was landing a lot of body kicks and just beating him to the punch. So a nice win for Benitez, and I'm excited to see him again. Clay Collard, again, this is where that question of the altitude comes into play, because this is not the same Clay Collard I had seen in the other fights, in his previous fight. So, I'll give him one more fight, before I pass judgment on him. But I thought it was a real nice performance by Benitez and really unexpected. Next fight, Cathal Pendred versus Augusto Montano. Pendred won the unanimous decision, 29-28. Yeah, I think I agreed. I think I gave Pendred 2 rounds, if not 3. I think Montano briefly dropped him in I believe it was in the beginning of the second. But really nothing to talk about here. Montano was very reluctant and hesitant to engage, with circling out and around the cage for the whole fight. Pendred, I don't think he's ever going to be even a mid-level fighter. Still got dropped in this fight, even though he won pretty soundly. But he's developing, very slowly his takedown and wrestling game, and his kind of press you against the fence, grinding style. It's very slowly getting more effective each time out. A win over Montano, I don't think means much of anything at all. But keeps his win streak, however fluky it might be, keeps it alive. And Montano looked exciting in his debut, but I just after this, I don't think he's worthy of being in the UFC. On to the FX prelim card at lightweight. Johnny Case got the unanimous decision over Francisco Trevino, 30-27 sweep. Johnny Case, this is a guy I really enjoy watching. Had 2 fights in his 2 finishes in his previous fights in the UFC before this. I thought he looked really impressive there, and even fighting with one eye after getting poked in the eye there in the first, I believe it was the first round. Not only was able to win the fight, but dominated, and I think it's just a treat to watch this guy fight. It's very rare in the UFC these days where you have a guy who's really dynamic on his feet, really composed, a good combination striker, and then is able to seamlessly transition to the takedowns. Does a great job of mixing up his striking and takedowns, and was able to get the takedowns on Trevino all day. Trevino had a brief moment, I think, in the second where he was able to reverse, get on top, landed a bit of ground and pound, but that was it. And Trevino, I didn't think, really looked good against Forts in his debut. I mean, won the fight, but, didn't look dangerous at all. And even though he didn't really, wasn't put in any trouble in this fight, just didn't do anything to impress me, and moreover, I just thought he had a terrible attitude, really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know about everyone else, but taunting Case on the feet when he was getting clearly outstruck and was clearly the less talented and skilled fighter than Case, was taunting him, kept shaking his head, and that's probably a good tactic for him because, a way to draw some attention to himself, because if he didn't do that, the judges, which they did, would have just seen Case, outpointing this guy in the feet, outclassing him all day. So yeah, Trevino did not make me a fan in this fight, and Case, I think, is really special, and I look forward to seeing him again. Next up at bantamweight, Patrick Williams got the technical submission by guillotine over Alejandro Perez, winner of Tough Latin America. I didn't expect this at all. Patrick Williams, I thought, looked really bad against Chris Beal in his debut, and just blew through Perez in, 23 seconds. Rocked him with a big punch, and then got the guillotine, put him to sleep. Seems extremely athletic, and seems like he has big power, and looks like a completely different guy than the guy who got knocked out by a highlight reel flying knee to Chris Beal in his debut. So if Patrick Williams can put on performances like that, I'm down to watch him. And Perez, a really devastating and bad loss to a guy who looked really bad in his debut, but I don't know. I'll give him, we'll see him again and evaluate him after his next fight. All right, on to the lightweight fight. Efrain Escudero getting the first round submission over Drew Dober by standing guillotine. this fight, I picked Dober, and was just really disappointed. Escudero, I think he's starting to turn it around. I wasn't convinced that he deserved his spot in the UFC after his first return fight against Leonardo Santos. I just thought he looked flat and kind of disinterested there. But then his last fight had a real dominant win over Rodrigo de Lima. And here, even though I think people are saying Dober slipped, and that's what led to the guillotine, Escudero capitalized and got the first round finish. So 2 strong performances in a row for him. And, I think he might be on a bit of a career resurgence here and maybe getting better. Drew Dober has yet to really do anything impressive. His last fight against Leandro Silva was losing early, seemed to be making a fight out of it. Got a real fluky win over Jamie Varner. So it's kind of yet to be determined, where he's headed. But Escudero, it'll be interesting to see if he can keep his momentum. And then the last prelim fight at flyweight, Henry Cejudo getting a unanimous decision over Chico Camus. A fight where Cejudo was really tested and pushed, but I actually agree with the decision. I know a lot of people thought Camus deserved to win, but I thought if you watch those combinations and exchanges closely in the later rounds, I thought Cejudo was getting the better of them, landing more punches, but seemed to have a big speed disadvantage early on. His takedowns were not effective. I mean, he was able to threaten with them. I think it was in the second round, got a slam where he looked like he spiked Camus on his head, but was not able to impose his wrestling. And for a guy who was an Olympic gold medalist, I think he might be one of those Mark Munoz guys who's a high-level collegiate and Olympic wrestling is not going to transfer all that well to MMA once he starts facing the high-level guys. I mean, if he's really struggling to take down Chico Camus, I can only imagine, how, ineffective his wrestling will look against guys like Demetrius Johnson or even Dustin Ortiz. But, Cejudo's still very green. I don't think he's anywhere close to being ready to fight Johnson after this fight. But, continue to build him up, bring him along slowly, but give him, incrementally higher and higher ranked guys each time. And, maybe he'll get there one day. But this was a real stiff test for him, and he did not pass with flying colors. And onto the main card at women's strawweight, Tisha Torres getting the unanimous decision over Angela Hill. One judge gave her one of the rounds, which must have been the third, which I did score for Hill. Thought she came alive in that third round. And I picked Hill to win the fight, but Tisha Torres completely shut her down with the wrestling. On the feet, Torres was clearly the more polished and technical striker. Hill was pressing forward, but very hesitant to throw her hands. And Torres really got the takedowns easily, and Angela Hill kind of looked like a fish out of water on the ground. Had a nice kind of defensive guard, was able to keep herself from getting subbed or put in a worse position. Torres got mount at one point, and Hill quickly recovered half guard, which was good. But other than that, could not do a thing to get back to her feet. And Torres, looked like a lay and pray artist a bit here, I thought. I don't buy Torres as a contender. She's skilled, good enough to beat some of these other fighters. But even her last fight against Magana, dropped her at one point, and just doesn't seem to have that desire to finish or really, go above and beyond to try to impress. So, not high on Torres as a contender. I know she has wins over Namajunas and Van Zandt. And Angela Hill, after a great debut performance, clearly has a lot of work to do, especially with her ground game. And then on to a featherweight fight, Yair Rodriguez got the split decision over Charles Rosa. Although Rodriguez was clearly the more impressive fighter here, clearly more skilled, at least on the feet, and also in the grappling department. I thought he was very fortunate to escape with the decision. That first round, I thought you could have, easily made the argument that Rosa won that. Got the takedown after getting blasted on the feet with some highlight reel, karate movie kicks, and then locking on the triangle for the majority of the latter part of that first round. Rosa was able to get on top and work some ground and pound, and did the same thing in the third, which he definitely won the third round. But Rodriguez, I picked him to win this fight, and I'm telling you guys, these guys from these countries where MMA does not have a strong foothold, does not have a deep rooted history, some of these guys, can be skilled and good. If you watch Latin America, Rodriguez did some real impressive things. Let me check real quick here. I'm watching Bellator, and this is the Pitbull Freire fight, and I don't want to miss the main event, Kimbo versus Shamrock. I'm going to finish this before then. I think I'm okay. I think he just won the fight, actually. But Yair Rodriguez, if you watched him on the show, did some really impressive things. Had a spinning back fist that led to a finish against Rodolfo Rubio. Against Humberto Brown, was locking up reverse triangles and finished him with a triangle. And you can say definitely that he was doing this against cans, but not everyone is capable of doing that stuff. All of the fighters would have done that kind of stuff in their fights if it was so easy. This guy is skilled, and he proved here, just like Benitez took out Collard, he took out an American fighter in the UFC who people thought was going to win just because he is from the American scene. And Rodriguez, you saw with all of those unorthodox and highlight reel kicks, the guy's very athletic and very skilled, and on the ground he's very skilled. So I can't wait to see Rodriguez again. Definitely has some work to do with the wrestling. I think he needs to rein it in a bit, not be so wild with his striking, but a lot to be excited about with him. And Rosa was really tough to survive, and even to win that third round, and could have arguably won the fight. So I don't write him off at all here, but I do think Rodriguez deserved to win the decision, and this was really kind of a breakout performance for him. Middleweight Kelvin Gastelum just beat the crap out of Nate Marquardt. It's really sad to see a guy like Marquardt continue to fight just because the guy's chin is completely gone. The fights against Hector Lombard and Jake Ellenberger, it's like he was just standing in front of them waiting to get knocked out. And then here, falling to his knees. Sometimes you see fighters, kind of fall to their back when they're hurt, trying to make a half attempt to pull guard. But I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter just fall to his knees to, escape punishment on the feet. It was very ugly. The fight was stopped in between after the second round, in between the second and the third. And Gastelum got the win, and Marquardt has said that God wants him to continue to fight, and if that's true, I don't want to see him get hurt anymore, because the guy looks like he's really compromising his health in there. But Gastelum, nice win. Really kind of a weird position for him now. Has already said that he can't beat Jacare and Weidman, the top middleweights, and no one wants to. I think that was a smart move for Gastelum to try to get back to welterweight. But it's not like he just knocked Marquardt out cold in the first round here. I thought was kind of going through the motions a bit. Didn't actually get the TKO. I mean, stopped in between rounds, but didn't put him away convincingly. I mean, he did beat him up, but didn't get that cold hard stoppage. But who wants to see a guy that says he can't beat his opponent? Who wants him to see? Who wants to see him fight that guy? I'm sure the UFC doesn't want to throw him in against a guy who he said he can't beat. I mean, could you imagine the promos for that fight are going to be Gastelum saying he can't beat him? Who wants to see that? So, I hope Gastelum can make it work and go back to welterweight. I know Dana White said no, but it's just kind of a weird situation now. Luke Thomas brought up this point one time in his video chat. He said, it's in the UFC's best interest to help guys like Gastelum and John Lineker remain at their weight classes. Pay for their nutritionists and whatever they need to make that weight. And I completely agree. Who wants to see a guy fight a guy who he already admitted he can't beat? But at the same time, Gastelum in his post-fight interview was kind of breathing heavy. He still looked kind of out of shape, even though he was fighting at middleweight. So, just kind of a mess, really. And then the co-main event, Eddie Alvarez getting the split decision over Gilbert Melendez. Really disappointing for me. For both of these guys, actually. I mean, I know Alvarez was fighting with one eye closed, but come on, he pressed him up against the cage, and Melendez just looked like he was out-muscled here, like he didn't have the strength to shrug Alvarez off of him and get his back off of the cage. It was ugly, I thought. After Melendez, I thought, had a really nice elbow that led to the closed eye of Alvarez in the first round. He was just completely stifled and shut out for the second and third rounds. Alvarez pushed him up against the fence, got a brief takedown, I think, in the second, but it was just holding him up against the fence, and Melendez couldn't get him off. And it was a sad way to see Melendez lose, I thought. And I don't really expect anything from either of these guys. Lightweight is really stacked, so, there are guys just floating around there trying to, get into contention. Miles Jury, Pettis is out there. And Melendez already actually has his next fight against Al Iaquinta, stepping in for Bobby Green. I like Melendez to win this fight, but after this fight, again, I don't know if you want to blame it on altitude or just Melendez looking really flat and maybe just kind of at the tail end of his career. But yeah, I thought it was disappointing. Eddie Alvarez, I mean, I thought we saw against Cerrone, what he's really able to do in the UFC at a high level, and it's not much. All right, the main event, Werdum submitting Cain Velasquez, getting the guillotine choke off of the takedown attempt in the third round. Incredible fight. And before this, the main card, you had Yair Rodriguez, you had Kelvin Gastelum in a pretty entertaining, semi-entertaining fight, and not a great night of action up and down the card up until this point, but like I said at the beginning, the main event just saved it. Cain Velasquez came out and was just fighting like his usual self. And again, I don't know if you just want to blame it on altitude, but I thought, everyone's saying, this was Werdum looking better than Velasquez, which he did, but and saying that it wasn't the altitude or it wasn't ring rust. I kind of disagree. I think the way Velasquez gassed early, I know Werdum was hurting him, but the way he just seemed, his cardio seemed to fade, which, he's known, he's revered for his cardio. I thought the ring rust, kind of played a factor here. But anyways, Velasquez came out hard, was closing the distance on Werdum, dropped him early in that first round, which seems to be kind of a motif for Werdum. Same thing happened to Hunt. I think that's something we're going to see throughout his fights, just getting that kind of flash knockdown early in his fights and, doing a great job of recovering. Velasquez was able to push him, back towards the fence, land some bombs. But as the fight went on, Werdum just stood his ground, and you could see the momentum shifting. He was eating all of Velasquez's shots. He was doing a great job of just not using movement, which is kind of kind of a recipe for disaster most of the time. But just stood his ground, threw back. I think his reach played a big part in him hurting Velasquez and being able to counter really effectively. Velasquez started to work the leg kicks, and then in that third round, Velasquez just kind of resorted to his wrestling, which he hadn't really done earlier in the fight, and Werdum submitted him off of it. So Werdum showed a great chin, and before the guillotine, wobbled Velasquez badly on a couple of shots, dropped him at one point, and just kind of crazy to, before going into this fight, I gave Werdum zero chance. I have to eat shit for that. And to go from a guy who I just thought Velasquez would destroy to a guy who we now have to consider as the greatest heavyweight of all time. We'll see if he can, sustain any momentum here. But that's kind of crazy to me. And, great performance by Werdum. It's really rare that this is kind of similar to the Dos Anjos Pettis fight. To me, it's really rare that you get a guy who just had no hype behind him early in his career and becomes a world-class fighter, a champion. And that's what Werdum did here. I mean, Werdum, of course, was more popular early on than Pettis, but or than Dos Anjos, and was a champion or fought at a high level in Strikeforce, but and Velasquez was a longer reigning champion, and I think people were considering him as pound for pound best, and Pettis had just won the belt recently. But my point is that it's kind of when Anderson Silva went down, it was to a surging young prospect, and you could kind of see that coming a bit. And while Werdum put together a really great run in the UFC coming over from Strikeforce, I never thought that he could do this to Kane. And a bunch of new fun matchups. Dana White said either Miocic or Arlovsky will get the next shot. So that should be a lot of fun. And I want to see Kane do something fun now. I think a rematch with Ben Rothwell would be great, even though, that's kind of a one-sided fight the first time, although the stoppage was definitely unjust and too early. I'd love to see him fight Mir if Mir can get by Duffy. Just give him something fun. And, heavyweight is... it's always a division where, you can just have one big fight in your title contention. I mean, look at Miocic, lost to JDS. JDS has a knockout win over Werdum, and he wins a fight against Hunt, and he's getting considered over JDS for the title shot. So, things can always turn around. So, do something fun with Kane. And, it'll be really fun to see Werdum defend his belt. Alright, guys, that's my recap for UFC 188 Velasquez versus Werdum. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the mask, a different one than I had for my predictions. I kind of wished I could wear one every time, but I don't think I can. I think we'll put the masks away, take them back out 5 months or so down the road in November for the next Mexico show in Monterrey. But thank you guys for watching. I will have all my recaps coming, all predictions. I think I'll have my 189 predictions out before my predictions for the Tough Brazil 4 finale, because we have to wait for the last episode before we know who the finalists are. And be on the lookout for those. But take care, you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.